see the sun, I'm rising up, I feel the love now, oh, it's in my vision. You know I ran around, and I got lost, but now I found it, well, I can't shake this feeling. Oh, it's gonna take me a little while, just to get my head around this moment. But I can see the sun, I'm rising up, I feel the love now, oh, it's in my vision. And it's telling me run, 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 and don't give up. And it's telling me run, 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 and don't give up.
Welcome to the Retirement Learning Lab, where we teach you how to retire without running out of money. My name is Van Richards, and this is the daily NASDAQ stock update. It was kind of a wild session today in the stock market, but we ended up in most of the indexes, that is. And the two stocks that we're going to look at today were up also, generally speaking. So we're going to look at Microsoft and Micron Technology. Now, the interesting thing about these two companies is when we look at what some of the analysts say, the analysts actually give them similar ratings. But when we actually look at what we use as choosing criteria for stocks here, you're going to see that there's a big difference. Now, the first thing that we're going to look at in everything that we do with stocks is we're going to look at the earnings. Then once we look at the earnings, we're going to look at the competitiveness of the company. And then we're also going to look at the stability of the company in itself too. Now, remember that when we're looking at stocks in this particular show, we're not here to day trade. We're here to really pick solid investments that will last a long time. And if you're tuning in with the idea of saving towards retirement, you're at the right place, because the whole idea of saving with stocks has three things that goes along with it. One is that we look for stocks that will be able to pay dividends. And one of the stocks today do, one of the stocks do not. But we also look for stocks that have the potential for growth. And growth is a very intricate component, if I can get all these words out. Growth is a very important component to retirement planning. Even if you are beginning your retirement and you are in your 60s, let's say, and you want to think of down the road in 20 years, what are you going to use to support yourself? And that's the idea of growth. You can still have a substantial amount of money in stocks. That is, if you're okay with the volatility that's possible there. And we'll talk about that on another day. But let's get right into the stocks that we're talking about, Micron Technology and Microsoft. And the very first one that we're going to hit on is going to be Microsoft. So let's get right to it from this standpoint. Microsoft, this is kind of interesting when we look at Microsoft, because it ended up the day with a lot of other stocks that are out there. And if you are out there and you think of Microsoft, the first person you think of is going to be Bill Gates. Okay. And you think this company's been around for a long time. It's old technology. It's not going to be competitive. You would be very wrong in your assessment of that. But the thing is that we look at right now with Microsoft is they have really three different main focuses for the company. The first is going to be productivity and business processes. This is going to be looking at something like Microsoft Office 365. They also have intelligent cloud services, which we're going to talk about today a little bit more, the Azure, if that's how you pronounce it. And there's some interesting news about that. And then there's also personal computing. If I could turn this around, you'd see that I have the new Microsoft Service laptop that I'm actually doing my broadcast on today. So I think that Microsoft is around to stay for a long time. Oh, there's one more really important thing that a lot of you are out there saying, hey, don't forget about gaming. And we're not going to forget about gaming, because gaming is a very, very important part of Microsoft. So let's look at some news that's up on that. On the gaming front, what's interesting to see is this, and I'm actually going to go to that slide first, and then I'm going to come back to the one that I was just on in here just a minute. Microsoft is a big player with the Xbox game systems. They also are a big player in making games available. And just yesterday, they announced that they purchased ZeniMax, the parent of Bethesda Softworks, for $7.5 billion in cash. I mean, geez, just think you had that lying around and you were going to basically go out and spend it today. $7.5 billion. If you want to make a lot of money, start and build a gaming company and then sell it. All right, let's go back for just a second. This was also in the news today because Microsoft is one of the two companies that's out there that has a cloud service that is sustainable from the standpoint of helping businesses and economies to run, in essence. The other is going to be Amazon Work Services. Microsoft actually launched a orbital connection satellite today and actually connected it. You can see more of that on, if you look it up, if you see Microsoft launches Azure Orbital to connect satellites to its cloud. That was on TechCrunch today. Okay, so let's keep on going on, getting on to the next thing that we're going to talk about. Let's talk about the valuation of this stock. A year ago, now this is going to be really interesting to pay attention to because I want you to look at this stock, and when we look at Micron Technology, I want you to look what's happened over a year and look at what the analysts are saying. We look at what's happened in the past year. The stock was $139.42 a year ago. It ended today at $207.42. They're up 48.77% for the entire 12-month period, for the entire year. And when you look at the earnings for Microsoft, that's really that's the story for everything. They're making money in all four of their areas. Now, I mentioned the fourth, which was the gaming area too. They're making money in all the services. Now, I want to make this just a little bit bigger. I do this regularly because I want you to understand that one of the most important parts of a stock is going to be their earnings, because if they're not making earnings, they're not going to be worth holding for a long period of time. Their stock value is not going to be able to be supported. But if we go back in every single quarter, you're going to note the solid line is going to be the actual earnings per share, and then the dotted line is going to be the estimated earnings per share. Every single quarter, Microsoft has exceeded, even during this coronavirus pandemic, they have exceeded what the earnings estimates have been every single quarter. That's the hallmark of a very profitable company in itself. Now, one of the other good things about Microsoft is the fact that it does pay dividends, and that's something that we like a lot here.
The beauty of your side.
Dividends are a good part if you're retired. Now, if you've listened to what the Federal Reserve has said recently, they're going to keep interest rates near zero until 2023. So if you're looking for income, you're going to have to look for something else other than bonds, because bonds not paying very much. And actually, I want to tell you this real quick if I could, because I did some calculations. If you went back and you looked at all of the stocks in the NASDAQ 100, you're going to find that about 60 of them pay dividends. And the average dividend for the dividend paying stocks in the NASDAQ 100 is about 1.9%. So that's actually not too bad. If you look at the diversification that's possible, and then you look at the income that's possible off of that too, it's close to 2%, let's say. We'll round up. Now, remember, though, when you have dividends from stocks, it's just like anything else that goes along with the stock. There's no guarantee that it's going to continue. That's why diversification of stocks that pay dividends is really, really important. You want to be able to diversify across industries. You want to be able to diversify across sectors, and you want to be able to diversify among the different companies that are paying dividends, so that if one is interfered with, it's not going to affect your overall income as much. So let's get right back into what we're talking about today with Microsoft. when we look at how they compete with other companies, you know the names that Microsoft competes with. Microsoft competes with the likes of Amazon, Apple, Google, and they've actually competed very well. I'm not telling you any big secrets from that standpoint, and you can see how that works out. Remember, though, the past performance is not going to be a guarantee of the future results. And when we talk about sustainability of the business, we want to refer to the moat of that particular company. The moat of a company is going to be the imaginary barrier that they have dug for themselves in between themselves and their competition. And you're going to see that Microsoft has a very wide moat. There's not another company out there that can actually compete with Microsoft on the level of the products and services that they have available. They've switched around their licensing, so it's a perpetual license rather than just buying the product. You might remember if you had Microsoft Office from years back, like I did, you went over to some place like Best Buy and you bought it and you brought it home on a disc and you had it for a long time. And, that's the way you bought the product. Nowadays, that's not the way it works. You pay a monthly or yearly price, and that's what's going to give you access to something like Office 365. Now, the switching cost is a big deal too. That expands the moat even more. And then there's the network effect. Now, the network effect is real simple. The more people that use the product, the more difficult it is to switch products in itself. And then again, Microsoft has industry experience that's actually second to none. All right. Now, when we look at actually what the different companies, the rating companies say about Microsoft, it's going to be interesting because I want to compare this to Micron technology in just a moment. Now, no, I don't want to pile on Micron technology because, there's good people over there and they provide a good product in itself, but it's just not the same when you talk about the comparisons. Today, they closed, that is, Microsoft closed at 207.42. And what Morningstar is saying the fair market value of this stock is $228. So if you look at the numbers, this stock is actually, according to Morningstar, trading at 9.02% discount. That is underneath what it really truly is valued at. Now, the way that they get their earnings per share estimates is going to be this. They use a thing called enterprise value. That's the value of the entire company. Then they divide that by the sales. That's EV divided by S for those of you who are accounting geeks. That's okay. I like accounting too and have some great friends that are. But the EVS is multiplied times 11, and that's going to give you what the fair market value is. Now, when we look at what other analysts are saying about Microsoft, there are 23 analysts that were polled for this particular survey, and we see that 19 of them are saying that it's a strong buy, 2 are saying it's a moderate buy, and 2 of them are saying that it's a hold. So when you average out the numbers, it comes out to be all right, it comes out to be a strong buy. Sometimes those buttons just don't click as well as they should. Now, let's draw the comparison there. Oh, one more thing. Look, I got to tell you this. When we talk about all these different stocks, I'm not here to tell you go out and buy this stock. I'm here to help you identify stocks that'll fit into a portfolio for retirement planning. We're not day trading. We're not swing trading. We're getting the idea of identifying stocks that are going to be profitable for the long term so that you can build up an income that won't run out as long as you live. Okay, let's get into Micron Technology because Micron Technology is a unique company. They have really 2 different products that they have available that set them apart from a lot of other companies. Dynamic random access memory and NAND flash memory. Now, the thing is, though, when we look at these particular products that are available, they're pretty readily available. Samsung is one of the biggest competitors that Micron Technology has, and they're actually a larger company, more diversified, and their products to some degree are a little bit less expensive. Now, when we go back and look at what the price of Micron Technology was a year ago, it was at $50.34, and then today it ended at $49.70. So you'll notice that over a period of a year, yeah, right before the coronavirus pandemic crash, as we see here with the dancing cursor, it was up quite a bit, but they haven't recovered since that point in time. So the stock in itself is really down 1.27%. There's no dividend that's paid on this particular stock, so we won't spend any time there. Now, when we look at actually what the projections are at the company is actually very, very well run. When we look at the earnings history, I'll make this just a little bit larger to go along with what we're talking about. Remember, when we look at the earnings per share, the solid line is going to be the actual earnings. The dotted line is going to be the estimated earnings. Every single quarter, they are so close to what they're actually saying that their earnings are going to be. The problem is that they don't have any competitive edge over top of the companies that they compete with, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. And the product in itself, it's readily available. There's no one that says that you could have a company like Western Digital, which is a competitor with the company, couldn't open up a factory somewhere in the world, the United States, China, Taiwan, South Korea, Vietnam, wherever, and pump out a whole lot of these different semiconductors that could compete. It's not like some of the other types of semiconductors that are very difficult to create in itself. Now, when we actually look at what the company has done in comparison to other companies that do something similar, I couldn't put up Samsung here because it's a Chinese company and we just didn't have the graph capability in itself. But you're going to find that Samsung really dominates the market when it comes to the type of semiconductors that Micron produces. When you look at the actual valuation of the stock, and if we're going to compare it, let's say, to Western Digital, Western Digital's had a hard time too. Western Digital is in the red, and you're going to see that they haven't made a comeback from the coronavirus market crash either. It's just that particular industry. So you may think that when someone says all tech is up, all tech is not up. You have to be very selective. And that's why what we do here is we look at the different stocks that are on the NASDAQ 100 and identify those that are more profitable, have the potential to be more profitable over the long term. I would say that Micron Technology may, but there are other companies that are out there that have better possibilities over a period of time. Intel is one of them. Intel is a little bit more, it's actually a lot more diversified than Micron Technology, but you always got to remember that the past doesn't guarantee what's going to happen in the future. Now, when we look at what Morningstar says about this company, they're telling us that there's really no moat. Remember what a moat is. Just a moment ago, we talked about this. There's really no moat. There's no barrier that's standing in between the competitive abilities of Micron Technology and any other companies that do exactly what they do. And there are several competitors. There's a South Korean company that is actually called SK Hynix that does something similar. Western Digital also, and then of course I mentioned Samsung. The quick memory storage chips, they're commoditized very easily. In other words, they're produced very quickly. There's no long-term profitability that's available from this particular type of business. So that's why we've not seen the value of the stock increase very much. We have seen it's a very important part of technology today, one thing that could make a big difference is with phones that use 5G, using these different components that Micron technology makes may make it more profitable for the company in itself. So we want to look also and think that there are some potential aspects that could be profitable, but when we're comparing it to a company like Microsoft, it's just really difficult to do. Now, what Morningstar says, let's take a look at the valuations from that standpoint. We've already established that the value closed today at 49.70. Now, what Morningstar is actually saying the fair market value of this stock is, it's at $48. So it's not really that big of a difference. It's a 3.54% premiums what it's trading at right now. When we compare it on a star rating, remember the star rating for stocks is not saying this stock is better than this stock. What it's doing is it's identifying the fair market value of those stocks. Now, even in the rating system in itself, it's not equal. It's not fair. If you look at the rating for Microsoft, and we looked at the earnings for Microsoft, and we look at the dividend payment for Microsoft, all of that is far, far, far better than Micron technology. I mean, the other thing that you got to look at is the valuation on Microsoft. And I've wanted to do this for a long time. So we don't have too many companies that trade at $1 trillion or more. So just remember this. This is how much Microsoft is worth, and this is what they're competing against. So other companies that are out there, if even it, like with the Micron Technologies, Micron's not a really small company. It's over $50 billion in itself, but it's difficult for them to compete just with the market that they have. With 20 analysts that were polled in this particular report that I'm giving to you today, 10 of them said that Micron technology was a strong buy. 3 of them said that it was a moderate buy. 6 of them said that it was a hold. And 1 of them said that it was a strong sell. And this is not a bell ringer by far. They're saying that this is a moderate buy in general. So as we get to the end of everything, and I remind you that the past performance of these investments is not a guarantee of the future results. I have to draw the parallel of how these stocks are used in planning for retirement, in savings in itself. Here, I will take this off just for a second. Because you see, if you're trying to save money for the future, the idea is going to be that you want to buy low and sell high in the future. And you want to accumulate as many shares of a stock of an investment as you can during the accumulation phase. So what I try to do is I try to help you identify stocks that have a better potential for increasing in value. Now, if I was going to compare the 2 companies that we talked about today, and if you were to come to me and say, Van, what do you think? Both of these are 3-star rated companies, Microsoft and Micron. What do you think? Do you think that there's a better potential for one over the other? Yeah, I would. I would say that Microsoft does. And the way that I do that, and the way that I do that with clients, is we take a look at the different stocks that you hold. We look at the differences between the two, and we look at the potential that's out there. When we look at the 3 or 4 different areas that Microsoft specializes in, and we look at how they're excelling at all of the different areas that they're working in, whether it's going to be building a satellite to perpetuate the cloud, or whether it's going to be making the attractiveness of Office 365 more available to people. it's a big difference. And then when we compare a company like Micron, Micron is not a bad company. It's just that it's commoditized, it's easy to replace, and the long-term possibilities of the two are vastly different. I don't think that you would get much argument from too many people about that. But you have to look at all the stocks that you own, all the investments that you own in that particular way. Now, not every stock, not every mutual fund, not every retirement plan has the stark differences in between them that you're going to see with Microsoft and with Micron. But what you want to try to do is do the analysis that I talked about. Look at the three things that we've identified today. First thing that you want to do is you want to look at the earnings of the company. And even with a mutual fund, if you're investing in a mutual fund, you want to see what the earnings potential is for the portfolio. Then you have to look at how does it compete. Now, with mutual funds, don't be drawn into the problem of saying this mutual fund is a 4-star, this is a 1-star, this is a 2-star. You have to look at it from the standpoint, is it going to do something that you need for you? Is it going to build income? Is it going to build value? Just owning an investment, just to own it. Now, I would say there are those people out there, though, that do buy stocks just because they enjoy the idea of owning stocks. Now, I know there's a few people out there that are trying to make a profit, trying to make a living from doing day trading and swing trading. Good luck to you. But that's not the strategy that we're teaching here. The strategy is to look at the three areas that I've mentioned. You want to look at the earnings, the stability, and the competitiveness. There are so many different variables that you can look at. If you go to whatever resource that you have, whether it's going to be Value Line or Market Watch, or even if it's going to be Morningstar, there's so much data that's out there that it can make your head swim. Look at those three things that I talked about. If you can establish the earnings, the stability, and the competitiveness of an investment, then you have identified a good investment. Okay. As we come to the end today, as we always do, I want to thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day and listening to me and following me. I love getting notices from different people. Those of you that are in other countries, yesterday I got a notice from India and one from Italy, and I love you guys. Getting your input and how you see things that we are talking about here in the United States is always interesting. So with that, I'm going to say have a great day. It's raining a bunch here in Houston. If you're out there on the road, stay safe, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day.